Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the MSMF Wealth Management Client Podcast for February 2025. 2025.
2 months into it already.
Wow.
Unbelievable. I'm still shocked. I'm living in 2019.
The year is 16% over.
Oh my God, stop it.
You did it last time. Don't do that.
Stop it. So what I thought we could do today, Cody, Jay, make sure Cody, Jay, because we're on take 2. I screwed up take 1. So what I thought I could, and I didn't call them the wrong names, by the way. I just directed stuff the wrong way. Anyway, what I thought we could do today is before you get too far into the year, let's do a final post-mortem on 2024. And let's share with everyone kind of the top lessons that we learned with our clients and prospects last year and share those with everyone, right? It's been a pretty interesting, particularly the last 3 or 4 years. You know, Cody, I'll start with you. You know, if you go to, and you can find this data anywhere, but I was out on the Guardian.com where I got some information relative to the Consumer Price Index, CPI. Mm-hmm. And if we go back to December of 2020 through December of 2024, CPI, Consumer Price Index, was up 21.4%. So what cost $1, Jay, now costs you $1.21. And while that pace has slowed, it's still that high. So, Cody, I know by part of the process with your clients, particularly clients that are approaching retirement or into retirement, there's a lot of conversation about spending and budgeting.
Yeah.
What is the impact of this significant increase in consumer price index, the inflation? What is the impact, and what do you share with your clients relative to managing their budgeting?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's we can feel it in the pocket, right?
Oh my
so
gosh.
I kind of look back and I'm at the grocery store, and I don't go that often. Thankfully, my wife usually goes, but I'm just like, I just have a hard time paying that for for
Right.
that box of cereal or
And
whatever.
you walk
it
by
might
and
be.
don't buy it, right?
Yeah, so I think we're starting to see that now. You know, it's just all behavioral. Is people are starting to sort out what's essential and what's discretionary, and some of that discretionary stuff starts getting cut back a little bit, right?
Right.
So the first phase you usually go through is cutting back on some items. And then the next phase is, especially if it's an essential, then it's substituting something that may be cheaper, less expensive, lower quality good for something, not as expensive.
Right.
So we're starting to see that. We're starting to see consumer credit card debt go up a little bit. Mm-hmm. We know that people are saving less just by the M2 money supply. So you combine those together, and it just shows you that inflation is finally starting to have an impact on the way we spend.
Right.
How do we inflation-proof it? Unless you buy all your goods today, there's really no way to inflation-proof it. But I think overall, it's people are cutting back out of the things they don't necessarily need. I just went through, and I feel kind of embarrassed about it, but all of the TV subscriptions I have, and I sit there and I'm like, I'll just purchase that, and I can accept it on my phone, and then all of a sudden you look back and you got like 10 subscriptions to all the different apps, and it's like, okay, some of this has to go. You got to start cutting it out. Just one little example, but it's categorizing what do I absolutely need and what do I not need.
Yeah, I think that essential versus discretionary is the most important thing, right? Just to have a handle on that. Mm-hmm. You're right. You can't inflation-proof it, but if you have a handle on what you have to spend money on versus what you want to spend money on, that's a giant leap forward, right? Okay, so number 2, Cody, that clearly the Fed's still a topic of conversation because interest rates have come back up. That has a trickle-down effect. So with interest rates increasing, how have you coached your clients relative to managing kind of the broad brush increase of interest rates on all debt out there?
Yeah, I mean, you have your fixed, what I'd say essential debt would be, you got to have a car, travel around, and get the A to B and for your housing, right? So those are, yes, they have gone up, but as long as they're not extraordinary, you'll figure out a way to deal with it, right? But I think that more on top of people's mind is high interest credit card debt. Mm-hmm. So number one is can I exchange that debt for something that's going to cost me less? You might be able to do a special promotion, 0% financing card. Do I have money that's just sitting in my bank that's, most likely is not collecting as much interest as I'm having to spend over here? So substitute that out and pay down that debt. Or three is, with your credit card debt, am I earning, what can I earn in the market over on average in a portfolio versus what am I having to spend on this interest rate debt? If that number is getting up there past 7-8%, then it might make sense to start paying that down a little bit better of a clip.
Right.
Because I think in the long run, you're going to turn out a lot better that way.
Absolutely. So massive inflation. I think massive is a fair word. Compliance may tell me different. Increasing interest rates, right? So there's a squeeze there. And a lot of that will impact kind of the from what we call our sleep quotient for clients, their emergency reserves or cash reserves. And I know you've got a lot of questions on that. How have you managed that conversation with your clients?
Yeah, gosh, just kind of simple math. If you go back, 3 or 4 years ago, what you had saved up as your sleep quotient, if that number's still the same, looks like you need to adjust it by 20% or so upwards, right? Because our wage growth has not been exceeding that for most people on average, hasn't exceeded that. And, it also depends on, just because that's what the CPI data says, if more of your budget's going towards food or healthcare, those have actually been higher than like energy was high at the beginning, then it dropped down, right? So it kind of depends on average where that's split up. But I think it's probably a good time to look at what you have saved up and make sure, is that really enough to get me by if we go through a little bit of a hard time?
Yeah, no, excellent. So yeah, inflation, interest rates, oh my gosh, my emergency reserves have dwindled down. All of that is the very fundamental kind of blocking and tackling to a financial blueprint. So Jay, I'm going to turn to you. Let's graduate a little bit. Some of the people, some of our clients, our prospects have come in and they're like feeling like I need to make a lot of money quick scheme.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm getting squeezed on the stuff that Cody talked about. So I know you've got a lot of prospects that have come in and talked about what should my investment strategy look like in this type of environment, and should I be trying to hit grand slams, baby, or what should I be doing?
Right.
How are you coaching your clients through that?
Yeah, so there's two sides to it. The first thing to think about is when you're dealing with inflation, one of the best things you can do is invest in the stock market, right? So that's step one, okay. But step two is, okay, I think I can outsmart the stock market because of insert shiny name here. Right, so whether it's cryptocurrency or it's meme stocks or it's a REIT that's doing something fancy or whatever, there's always something to kind of draw people's attention away from the good old-fashioned, let's have a long-term portfolio, let's have a strategy, excuse me, something that we have researched and we can have kind of a reasonable expectation of long-term what it's going to do. Right, so that to me is kind of a big lesson that was learned from 24 as well. I'm talking to a lot of people about it, right? You have a bunch of cryptocurrency. How did that end up for you? Was that a fun ride? Do we want to do that again for 2025? Just asking those questions, I find a lot of people are taking more risk than they're actually comfortable with.
Right.
Especially when you're talking about retirement money, the goal is you want it to be there when you get there,
right.
Not how big can it be. You
right.
know what I mean? So that to me is, and I love how we put it on here, smart investing beats speculation. That's just a good recap of it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And the one thing I would say is that what we see is that in times of uncertainty, and certainly however you want to slice it up, what we talked about, there's some uncertainty there with inflation and interest rates. We will get, all three of us witness our clients get more emotional in terms of some of these decisions. And I think the key thing is, certainly what the three of us bring to the table for our clients, is that kind of arm's length, unemotional no, we're not going to adjust an investment strategy in the near term because we feel pressed on our emergency reserves or things like that. If we really want to have the best opportunity for this overall blueprint to work, it's a long-term strategy that we need to maintain and avoid the emotional swings.
And part of the emotion, I'm glad you said that word, because that makes me think of one phrase, FOMO. That's what a lot of people are looking at in the last 2 years, right? I mean, everything, quote unquote, has really gone up the last couple of years. 2022 was a pretty rocky year.
Right.
So if you're feeling like, oh, I really missed out on everything going up, I need to take more risk, I need to go after these different things, I don't know when the next downturn. We did the market outlook last week, right, or last month.
Yeah.
I don't want to rehash it, but there could be some volatility. I don't know if now's the time to be speculative with different investments.
Right.
So.
And chasing the new shiny toy is dangerous sometimes.
Yes.
So, okay, so let's move on to another big one, which I know we all get asked about a lot. Jay, you get asked about it probably more than anyone in the office because you specialize in working with real estate professionals. Your bride is one. You're heavily involved in this market. So with the increase in interest rates, the dream of owning a home or owning a different home has taken on a whole new look. Mm-hmm. So how are you walking your clients through? They want to buy that house, or they want to buy a retirement home, or they want to leverage up because they got now 3.2 kiddies running around as opposed to 1.1. How are you coaching them?
Yeah, I think just to start off, I still believe that real estate is a good thing to be investing in. Now, when you talk about your home, I don't really consider that an investment per se, but when you're talking about buying your first home or something like that, I've heard several people say the phrase, I'm going to wait until interest rates go back down. Everything we just said in the top half of this, I don't really think interest rates are going to be going down. I think we're right around fair right now. If you compare it to the last 12, 15 years, it feels high, I will agree, but that's because we were artificially holding down interest rates.
Right.
So, and by the way, we did that because of right before that, the big real estate bubble that popped, and they were trying to spur activity. So that was kind of interference of what's normal. I feel like right now we're right about where normal interest rates for mortgages should be. So I know it kind of stinks when you're comparing to somebody who's got 2.5% over here with their 30-year mortgage. I don't think we're going to get that again. So if 2025 goal is to downsize or buy a new house or get your first house, I still think that's a valid thing to do. Just understand that the rates are what they are.
Right.
I still think it's a valuable thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I remember when I was born, my parents moved into the house that I grew up in, and my parents got a 4% mortgage. And for ever since I could remember, which is probably 7 or 8 years old, I remember my dad telling me that, at the time, oh yeah, they've called and offered me a toaster to refinance because rates were higher than that. And they wanted to get the loan off the books. And I'd have to go back and look, but I can't remember a time where we even sniffed that again until the last 15 or 20 years. It's been that low.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we'll see that again. And I know I look young, but there's a 6 in the first number. So it's a while ago when I was 8. So anyway, let's now, Jay, if you would, talk about there's a lot of risks that our clients face, which I'm not going to say that they ignore, but sometimes because of all these other issues you guys have mentioned today, they kind of get shuffled to the back. Mm-hmm. And one of the big ones, and I know you talk to clients a lot about it, particularly clients that are working and which was health savings account and HSA is available. We're all 3 big proponents of that unicorn. But healthcare costs in general require some proactive planning in our clients' financial blueprints. It can't just be, hey, I got group coverage, something happens to me or my spouse or my kids, we got her covered. There needs to be proactive planning, particularly when our clients retire. It becomes even a bigger issue. Share with me kind of how you coach your clients through that, because again, when we look at this inflation, healthcare costs have gone up in excess of 21%. Mm-hmm. And when there's any type of out-of-pocket, that's tremendously larger than it was 4 years ago. So how are you walking your clients through preparing for that possibility?
Yeah, well, you said most of what I was going to say. So,
I'm that good.
But what can you do, I guess, is kind of the question I'll try to answer. And it's really two phases, right? If you're working, So if you're working, you only have a handful of options, unfortunately, and they keep getting smaller and smaller with different carriers pulling out of different coverages. So unfortunately, it is what it is. And so I'm just kind of coaching clients. The same thing you said right there. It's a big part of the CPI inflation we've had recently. And so sometimes that's a big shocker when you're trying to plan ahead for those numbers. We were looking at numbers of what the average 60-year-old would need in the next 30 years, and I'm not going to drop the number now, but my jaw dropped.
Yeah, it's scary.
So, just knowing that that's a big part of retirement that often gets shoved under the Medicare. Oh, yeah, it's Medicare.
Right.
There's so much more you need to have saved and ready to go for that than a lot of people think about. So HSA is super powerful. If you have access to them, we're totally on board with that. Max those out. Even if you're on Medicare, you often, well, no, I take that back. At Medicare, you can't. But as long as you have access to a high deductible plan and you qualify for one, man, really, really think about maxing that out.
Right. And there's a lot of tie back to when Cody talked about emergency reserves for this potential issue. Even with group health insurance, like our group health insurance, it doesn't cover everything. There's a deductible. There's in-network, out-of-network. There's all sorts of costs that we're potentially exposed to. Fast forward into retirement, even worse.
Yeah, because now let's talk about inflation and retirement. If you're on a fixed income per se, you've got something paying out that's the same every year, or smaller increases. Now that inflation really hurts.
Right.
So, and medical expenses are not on that same fixed schedule. So.
No, not even remotely close.
Yeah. So just another big number to be thinking about and having a plan around it.
Awesome, great stuff. The last one is one of my favorites because we also get these risks are around here inside this building, let alone with our clients, and that's any type of cybersecurity risk, any type of email, text scam, even a phone scam. They're still out there, right? The number of bad actors that are out there trying to separate our clients from their money continues to grow astronomically. Like I said, we have it here, particularly like with our email systems and the like. We're a financial services firm, so every bad actor out there thinks somehow, which they can't, but thinks somehow if they hack into our website, they're going to have access to all sorts of money. They can't. We're set up that way, so we don't have any access to your accounts. But you've all seen it. We've seen it. I saw it. The example I used to use all the time is that my dad would call me twice when he was retired and said, "Hey, I just got a call from the IRS. They say I owe money." And my dad was a really smart guy. He was an attorney. He was a good old country boy. So he had book smarts and common sense. But I had to constantly remind him, the IRS doesn't call you. They send a letter that looks like it was printed out on a dot matrix printer 25 years ago, right? And our clients get emails, all these phishing scams. You got to be very careful. You got to look at who it's from, not the name on it, the actual email address. Don't click on any links you don't understand, because I'm telling you, these people are getting smarter and smarter and creative on how to get in your back pocket and take your money away from you. And I know you've probably had people that this has happened to recently, right?
Yeah, I mean, just even calling.
Right.
They call and they record your voice, and then they use it to get through some systems. So, whether you like it or not, your information is out there.
Right.
And, it's just better just to not answer those calls. Text, too. I mean,
but they're all right.
It's all over the place,
Right.
And some of them are really good.
They're creative. I'm glad you brought up the voice thing, because you take a call from someone who you don't know who it is, right? And you say hello, or someone immediately says, "Is this Cody?" "Yes, this is Cody." The fact you said yes, they can record that and use that for you to opt into something that's going to cost you money, right? And I know, Jay, you've seen this with some of your clients. What any other issues that your clients have faced you've had to walk them through?
Nothing comes to mind, but last month I was super optimistic around how AI was really going to kind of help our financial field, and then we talk about cybersecurity, and I have the exact opposite response. It's like, man, they're using AI too.
Yeah, I think, and as a bonus lesson, I think AI has tremendous power in our business to help our clients.
Yes.
There's tremendous risk there.
Yes.
Right. And
Both sides.
it's just we're, our whole industry is trying to manage both sides of that, which is why we don't have a ton of stuff out there with AI. It's more kind of in the background. Someday I think it will be, and I think it can be a tremendous help to our engagement. We'll get there. But there are risks because there's bad actors out there, right? So Cody, final thoughts, lessons from 2024, biggest takeaways, biggest things you're coaching clients on.
Yeah. I mean, just kind of like we started off. Heck, we're already into February, right? And COVID was, already 4 or 5 years ago, and that's when we started with the inflation. And I think just over that period of time, it's kind of crazy to think, okay, costs could be 20 to 25% more. When was the last time you've actually went through and looked at what you were spending and budgeted things and made sure that you had enough money saved up? If you haven't done that in 4 or 5 years, it's probably time to revisit that. I mostly spend everything on credit cards, so it's easy to kind of look at what I'm spending. But it's probably good practice to re-examine that and again, probably go through essential and discretionary expenses and making sure that nothing is being charged that you're not aware of.
Love it. Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, so looking at these lessons from 2024, it's encouraging to me that there's no big surprise.
Right.
There's no big shocker. It's really reinforcing why we do what we do, why we talk about sleep quotient, why we talk about budgeting and all the different things, right? So that to me is encouraging that as long as we're working together, we're talking about these different things, that we've got a plan and we can keep moving forward and be successful.
Yeah, I love it. That's fantastic perspective, because I think you could listen to us and be like, oh my God, everything's bad. Well, it's not bad.
No.
But you hit the nail right on the head, Jay. It's why we go through and work with our clients on an initial and regular basis to create an updated financial game plan so that we can have that blueprint of where we're headed, and we can deal with all of these various economic curveballs that come our way, market curveballs that come our way, life curveballs that come our way. And that's the whole reason to have a blueprint and a strategy going forward. Yeah. All right, fellas, great stuff.
Yeah.
Great stuff. I didn't call you the wrong name, so everyone knows that. I just asked the wrong questions. I got to clarify that again on take 1. So take 2 is a lot better. You guys were awesome as usual. I didn't blow it. So thank you for joining us. Please feel free to share this information with your friends, family, anybody that has questions about a lot of these issues that were our top lessons that we learned from clients and prospects last year. Pick up the phone and call us. Please use our client text line, email, however you want to get a hold of us, whoever you want to share this with. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next month.